Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rishi Sunak. Welcome, Chancellor. Straightforward question, in a way. How much has the coronavirus epidemic changed the budget you wanted to give?
Well, you're right. It's a huge task and one I feel a great responsibility to make sure that we get our response right. But what I can tell you is I'm very well supported and we're working around the clock to make sure that whatever the scenario is, we are very well prepared.
Are you going to be spending and borrowing more to get us through this crisis?
Well, obviously you have to wait for Wednesday, but what I would say is we're looking very hard at the range of scenarios and making sure that in each of those we can respond appropriately. And that means providing support for public services, and we've already done that with regard to the NHS, making sure that we can support vulnerable people, and also making sure that we can help businesses get through what could be an impact on their businesses. It could be significant, but for a temporary period of time.
I very much want to talk about all of that, but before we do, the actual scale of the crisis in terms of the economy and business interests me, because the OECD has suggested it could halve global growth and be the biggest crisis since the 2008 financial crash. Would you, by and large, agree with that?
Well, I want to say at this stage, there are a range of scenarios that could happen. I think the important point to note is, and what people should know is, we come into this in a very strong position. The foundations of our economy today are very strong. Wages are rising at a fast pace, unemployment is low, employment is high, and crucially, our public finances are in a very strong position, which means I can sit here and tell you I'll take whatever action is required.
But what about the OECD suggesting a halving of the world economic growth?
Well, I'd say, look, at all points, we're going to be guided by the science, and obviously I'm in constant contact with our scientists who are providing the advice on the various scenarios.
That includes the dismal science.
I'm in touch with, obviously, the Governor of the Bank of England and others. So, as I said, we're preparing for all of those scenarios, but we are very well prepared, and our economy is in a very strong position today coming into this, which means I have the confidence to say to you, we will get through it.
In practical terms, when you're preparing, you base your budget and so forth on OBR figures, suggesting what's going to happen to the economy. You asked for those a few weeks ago when you arrived, and you got them then. They are already presumably way out of date. Is the OBR going to update its numbers for you just before the budget, or do you wait until after the budget and publish them then?
Well, the OBR has an independent process, and you're absolutely right. They would have done their forecast without having the full knowledge of what might happen in the future. That's always the case, but obviously in this case it could be dramatic. There could be more variation around those. We're obviously cognizant of that, but the crucial thing is, in terms of the budget, what I'm doing is we're going to take the steps today to provide economic security to people, and then we are also going to make the decisions that are right for the long term to put a platform for growth and prosperity there. And in that sense, the OBR's medium-term projections are relevant for those plans.
So those OBR numbers are out of date?
Well, it's not that they're out of date, but they were done at a particular point in time. Yeah. They're done at a particular point in time. Obviously, things have evolved since then. But it's crucial, again, we don't know exactly which scenario we might be in, but we're preparing for all of them.
Do you have your own internal projections, or are you flying blind in this budget?
No, I'd say we are looking at a range of scenarios and making sure that we're well prepared for all of them. We're looking at what the impact might be, whether it's on businesses, whether it's on vulnerable people, whether it's on our public services. Okay. And in all cases, on Wednesday, you will hear from me the various options and policies that we can put in place to provide that vital support.
Good. So let's turn, if we could, to the specifics. Let's think of all of those people who are earning too little money to actually qualify for sick pay. 2 million people, according to the TUC. They're being told, many of them, that under certain circumstances they should stay at home, self-isolate, and not go into work. What kind of help can you give them? Because if they go onto universal credit, that can take 5 weeks to get that money in.
Well, you're absolutely right. There will be some people who are not covered by statutory sick pay. We're looking at all of the various interactions with our benefit system, whether it's universal credit, whether it's employment support allowance, and making sure that people are crucially not penalised for doing the right thing. That's something the Prime Minister said, and we wholeheartedly agree with. And then looking at making sure that the operation of our benefit system can be as quick and as accessible as possible, given the circumstances we face.
Does that mean some system of emergency payments for people who need to pay their food bills, for instance?
Well, there already is, under universal credit, the ability to get an advance payment from day one. Now, I'm in touch with the Work and Pension Secretary about exactly how we are operationalising all of these things. You'll hear some more from me about all of this on Wednesday. But the crucial point is people shouldn't be penalised for doing the right things. We recognise the impact this might have on people. It's fair that people are anxious, but we will be able to provide that reassurance.
And it may be very, very important to ensure that people aren't tempted to go to work and earn the money that they would otherwise be earning. So can you guarantee that people will be able to get some kind of payments within a week or less so that they can pay their bills?
As I said, already under universal credit, that is possible. But there are lots of other things about how the benefits and welfare system operates in terms of the requirements on people to provide sick notes, to go to certain places. We're looking at all of that.
That's where we are now, Chancellor. But there's an awful lot of people who may be in the position of knocking on the door and saying, I need this money pretty quickly. Yep. The system could be overwhelmed. So I ask again, can you guarantee that those people will be supported within a week?
That's it. We're making sure that all vulnerable people are supported. We want to make sure our welfare system and benefit system works quickly and that it works effectively to provide that security people. There are some things that we might need to tweak. We're looking at all of those. As I said, I'll be talking about it on Wednesday.
OK, let's talk about another group of people, which are people who are working, as it were, as freelance members of what's called the gig economy. They might be driving cars or trucks or cleaning offices or doing all sorts of things whereby they're reliant on the money coming in to the hand day by day by day. Again, they may not be part of the universal credit system or have ever applied for universal credit. Is there some way that the government can do to ensure that they get sick pay, they get help?
Well, it's important to note, actually, that many people in that economy may well, through their employer, have access to some of these benefits, and certain different gig economy employers do provide those benefits for their... You're right, not everyone does. We're looking, again, this is one of the things that we're actively looking at the moment, and making sure that for those people, whether it's employment support allowance, whether it is universal credit, that those things are available to them. And as you said, they might not have interacted with them before, so we need to make sure that they can access them quickly and effectively to provide that security for them.
Now, if they get sick pay, if they're in that happy position, then that will be because their employers are paying it for them. There are lots and lots of small businesses, small and medium-sized businesses around the country already on the edge of going under, who are suddenly faced with huge new sick pay bills or worried about it. Can you support them? Can you support the companies to ensure that they don't go under because they're paying sick pay for employees who are not turning up?
Yeah, you're right. Look, again, there are a range of scenarios as to what might happen here. So I think you're talking about a scenario that we don't know for sure is going to happen, but we're prepared for all of them, and that's as you would expect us to do. It's a responsible thing to do. And in those scenarios, yes, there will be an impact on business. I'm very cognizant of that. It could be significant, but it will be temporary. So we're actively looking at ways that we can help support businesses, especially those small and medium-sized businesses you mentioned, a bridge through a temporary period of difficulty so that they can emerge on the other side and we can get back to normal quickly. So, yes, I am looking at all of those things. It is
temporary, of course, but Mike Cherry, who's from the Federation of Small Businesses, says the government should now urgently reintroduce a full rebate for small firms.
As I said, we're looking at a range of options to provide temporary support to small businesses to help get them through this.
But giving them a rebate on sick pay now is the kind of thing that can stop a company going under. I'm just asking you whether you're going to do it.
We have a budget on Wednesday, Andrew.
Sure.
But the broader point is we're very cognizant of the impact that we'll have on small businesses' cash flow. I'm keen to make sure that when we get through the other side of this, we haven't lost all of these great businesses permanently, and that's why we need to provide them that short-term support.
I was talking just now to somebody from the WHO who was saying that we must give extra support to NHS staff, doctors and nurses in this crisis. Chinese have lost a lot of doctors and nurses trying to look after people. Is there a pot of money to help the NHS go through the extraordinary events it may face over the next few weeks and months?
Well, I can say absolutely categorically the NHS will get whatever resources it needs to get us through this and to respond to the health crisis. We've already started that process. We've already released extra funds to the NHS, for example,
is that
for
in effect
vaccine
a blank check
development. We will provide the NHS with whatever support it needs to help get us through this. They're going to be on the front line of responding to this. And if we're in, as I said, there's a range of scenarios, but we want to make sure they have everything they need. As I said, that is already happening with regard to vaccine development and other things. And people can rest assured that that's what we will continue to do.
Then there's the question of hospital beds. And I was talking about the Chinese building a hospital in a few days, effectively. Now, we can't do that. But, for instance, the Army has lots of field hospitals around the country. Is there a possibility of those being ruled out? And if so, have you got the funds to let that happen?
I'll say, with regard to funds for all of the things, as I said, that won't be an issue. We will provide the resources that are required for the NHS and public services to get through this.
Okay.
With regard to exactly the form that takes will depend on the advice we're getting from the scientists. So again, we're guided always by the Chief Medical Officer, the Chief Scientific Advisor, what is best for the NHS, what is best for our country. And as those decisions are made, we will provide the funding to support them.
So you don't know, nobody knows what the effect is going to be on business in the short term in terms of tax takes and all the rest of it, money coming in. But also nobody knows really the effects on the rest of government, apart from the NHS, the Ministry of Justice, prisons, the army, all sorts of parts of government. Local government in particular may see lots and lots of people self-isolating, not coming into work, and effectively parts of what the government normally does simply shutting down. Do you have the money to, as it were, cover that?
So I wouldn't say we don't know. There is enormous amount of work going on across government at the moment, and people are working day and night to make sure that we're prepared for all scenarios. So we're looking at exactly what the impact might be on different parts of just the public sector, but also, as you said, businesses, and I said vulnerable people, making sure that we have plans in place. And that's not just about the funding. In fact, that's easy to write a check in some senses. What it's making sure is that we practically know how we're going to be able to help people, provide the support they need, and help us get through this. That work is ongoing. We're preparing for all scenarios, but the point is, at the moment, we're not in that place. At the moment, we're still in the contained phase of this virus. We set out a comprehensive plan earlier this week that explains to the public the steps of this process. And the best advice at the moment is for people to wash their hands for 20 seconds. That is the single best piece of advice that we can give. It's the best thing that people can do to help prevent the spread of this virus and protect themselves. And I would urge everyone to keep doing that.
Now, you've said you're going to give the NHS and other parts of the public sector all the money they need for this, and nobody knows what the effect is going to be on business. So can I ask you, in the context of the budget, are you going to stick to the 3 clear fiscal rules that the Conservative Party put in its manifesto only a few weeks ago?
Well, so I can't comment on the budget in advance of the budget.
I'm just asking you to stick with your manifesto.
I would say is, look, I believe very much in the importance of fiscal responsibility, about responsible management of our public finances. And as I made the point before, it's because there's been very strong management of public finances over the last 10 years by successive Conservative chancellors who have made some difficult decisions that means I can sit here today and say I will invest what it takes to get us through this, because our public finances are in a good spot. And so people should remember that's why we're able to respond today. That's why it's important to have fiscal responsibility and sound management of these things.
Will government debt be lower at the end of this Parliament?
I said I can't comment on the exact forecast until Wednesday.
Will you guarantee not to borrow to fund day-to-day spending?
I said, Andrew, you're asking me again about the detail of the budget, which I can't give you. But look,
let me just. Last one is: can you guarantee to balance the budget within 3 years?
Again, you're asking me about the detail of what the budget contains, which I can't give you until Wednesday. Well, I can give you my broad approach to public finances, is as I've set out.
All I'm asking you is whether you're going to stick by the clear 3 fiscal rules on which your government was elected only a few weeks ago. And if you can't say yes, then people will assume the answer is no.
No, well, we have a budget on Wednesday. I could be asked many, many questions about every single line item in the budget, and I couldn't confirm or deny any single one of them. But
it's hardly a detail to ask you if you're going to be fiscally responsible.
And I've given you a very strong commitment. Of course we'll be fiscally responsible, and it's because successive Conservative governments have been fiscally responsible that we're able now to respond in scale to the challenge that we're facing. What this budget is, though, let me just say, what is this budget going to do? It is going to, first and foremost, deliver on our promises to the British people. I think trust in politics has been undermined by the things that have happened over the past few years. I'm very keen to make sure that we rebuild that trust. And that starts with doing the things that we said we would do. And that means protecting economic security today because of the challenge that we're facing, but also laying the foundations for future growth and prosperity and making sure that we level up across the country, we spread opportunity. Those are the things that you will hear on Wednesday.
Can I put it to you that this is a moment where we are potentially facing a really, really serious, unexpected crisis with coronavirus, and interest rates are very, very low, when any sensible government would be borrowing to get us through the next few months? That is the sensible, responsible thing to do.
You are right that interest rates are very low, and they have been very low for a while. And there is a strong macroeconomic debate about what that means for fiscal policy, for monetary policy going forward. So, of course, I'm engaged with those debates, as you would expect me to be. But in the short term, as I said, we need to make sure that we respond at scale to whatever scenario comes our way. I can commit that we will do that. I know that we will get through it. This country has risen to challenges before.
But you can't
we
commit
will
to
get
your
through this one,
rules.
and we will also, at the same time, take the decisions that lead to our long-term growth and prosperity. We are able to do both things, and we will do that on Wednesday.
Do you think the way the Treasury has traditionally measured investment has unfairly benefited the southeast and London and disbenefited the North and the Midlands?
Well, I think it's certainly something that we should be looking at, which is why I will be on Wednesday outlining a review of what we call the Green Book, which is the manual that the government uses to allocate investment and make investment decisions. I think there are some parts of that Green Book that require us to have another look at. We will be doing that. That process will launch on Wednesday. We've already started that work. And also, to make sure that the Treasury is at the forefront of this levelling up agenda, I want to lead from the front. We will be opening a new economic campus in the north of England and also opening offices for the first time in Wales and Northern Ireland. As I said, the Treasury is an important institution in government. It drives investment decisions. It should reflect what's required in every part of the country. And this new economic campus is a significant step in helping us deliver that.
And is that what levelling up means to you, or is it about getting average incomes in the North and Midlands of England closer to those of London?
It's a great question, actually. And levelling up, sometimes people take to mean as we're going to build a bridge here or a roundabout there or another road here. To me, it's about spreading opportunity. And it's making sure that, wherever you live in this country, we can fulfill your aspirations. That opportunity should be the same wherever you happen to grow up, whether it's a rural area in the southwest or a town in the northeast. I'm keen to make sure that opportunity is equally spread. We can fulfill everybody's dreams and aspirations. That's what levelling up means to me.
That all sounds great, but after 4 years of a Boris Johnson government, how do we possibly know whether you've achieved any of that or not? How do we measure it?
Well, you will be able to, of course, measure it in the stats of income growth and everything else. You'll be able to measure it in where we're making our investments in infrastructure, as we've said, and we talked about the Green Book. But I said, it's about a feeling that people have that where their circumstances are not going to, where they happen to be born, where they happen to grow up, is not going to be the determinant of how well they do in life. It's because wherever they are, we've provided them with the opportunities, whether it's through education, whether it's through skills, whether it's through a better bus connection that gets them to a better job. We're doing all of that, and that's made that their life is better off, that they feel that their aspirations are being realised. That's how I'm going to measure it.
A lot of people up and down this country running small businesses, entrepreneurs, are faced by a series of potentially difficult blows ahead, including changes to the entrepreneurial tax, changes to IR35 and the rest of it. What are you going to do to ensure that this government, after the budget, is still seen as a government keen to help entrepreneurs?
I think, look, first and foremost, I passionately believe in the power of business to drive growth and prosperity in this country. If businesses are doing well, especially our small and medium-sized businesses, that's what's creating jobs for people, that's what's paying them their wages, and that's what's ultimately funding our public services at the end of the day. So I strongly believe in that. There are a range of things that we have done already and will do in the future to make sure that we keep taxes low on business, that we encourage them to invest, which is crucial, whether it's in R&D or whether it's in equipment, and we encourage them to employ more people.
You're going to cut income tax for lower income people?
We talked in the manifesto and in the campaign about national insurance. That is something that we said we would do. And as I said, my broad theme is to deliver on the promises that we made.
Now, would it not be sensible, given the multiple challenges and the unknowns facing British business at the moment, to be slightly more flexible about your Brexit timetable? In these new circumstances, not even the most ardent Brexiteer is going to be protesting if you slightly delay the timescale for implementing the trade talks.
No, well...
Why push ahead at this moment, given all the other...
Look, we've already started these talks and they've got off to a good start. Of course, they're going to be tough negotiations. You would expect that. But I think they were conducted in a constructive and friendly tone, and we're already making progress. There's a drumbeat of talks now every other week, which means when we get to June, we should be able to take stock and see if these talks are progressing in the direction that we hope they are. There are a range of reasonably uncontroversial things, and it would be nice to know that those things are sorted and we're making progress on the others. But, to your point about delays, I think we've seen in the last 3 years, delay doesn't lead to any good outcomes. It's not helpful, and actually having a fixed timetable and delivering on it is the important thing here.
Now, you've done an impact assessment for the talks between Britain and the USA, trade talks, but you haven't done one for the talks between Britain and the EU, or you haven't published one. Why not?
What we've said is that given the complexity of that relationship, we are actually going to seek views from a range of people and a range of different people so we can absorb all of that input and then look at what all of that says, and then that will give people a range of scenarios for what might happen. But as I said, it's
But you are going to publish it.
We're going to absorb and see what we get in the first instance, but we're interested in getting views from everybody. As I said, and you're right, we have published the impact of the US trade deal and what it might mean, and it means actually a boost to our growth and productivity, but a boost nonetheless. And historically, all of these analyses, and we've found when we've looked at them around the world, tend to underestimate the actual ultimate benefit of these trade deals, because then the analysis is not very good at capturing the benefits to non-goods movements, whether it's services and non-tariff barriers.
Chancellor Rishi Sunak, thanks very much indeed for talking.